Welcome back to That's Kinda Sus. I'm your host, a tired grad student. And the semester is about to come to an end here, and I actually wanted to talk about something that I'm looking forward to, but I still have to wait a while. It's that time of year again. It's time for farmers markets. And I actually wanted to do like a little episode about this because this is something I think a lot of people don't know much about, and it's actually really sustainable in some ways and not sustainable in others. And I wanted to talk about this because I've been going to farmers markets for about 2 years now, and it's something that I'm very much used to. I know what a farmers market is, I know how to work them, I know how to get around them easily, but they're kind of difficult, so I wanted to make a little post about that and just talk about what you should know if you're ever going to a farmer's market. So, for luck's sake, the city of Pittsburgh actually has these fancy little tote bags. I got this the first time I ever went to one of them, which is even funnier because the lady who gave me the tote bag's brother used to go to the same place I did for undergrad, so we had a 30-minute conversation about that. And that is a farmer's market for you. You will have very interesting conversations with people. They won't be weird, they'll just be interesting. Unless you talk to someone who's selling, like, something kind of strange. So, but, for me, the way I do farmer's markets is very much to my situation, so I'm going to tell you what that is, and then you can adapt this as much as you want. So, when I go, I usually take this bag with me because it has one of those, you can't really see it too well, but it has one of those little insert thingies that kind of makes the bottom more stiff, so it's a very convenient one to have with me. It's also pretty decently sized, so it works out really well. And so I use this one a lot. Sometimes I'll use another one. I have a much heavier one that is just, it can hold more weight to it, so if I know I'm going to be purchasing something that's more heavy, I can get that one instead. And it's actually really comfy. But what I do is, the farmer's market I go to is like 2 to 3 blocks away from my apartment, so I just walk there. If you need to drive, of course. Public transport is always great, but that's not always the best if you have perishable goods. I tend to not buy things at a farmer's market that have to be refrigerated immediately, but sometimes that is the case, where I do buy something that needs to be refrigerated quickly, and so that can cause an issue. Usually if that's the case, they'll give it to you frozen and you have quite a while, but still, beware of that. But even the farmer's market I go to, there is ample parking nearby that you can use. Sometimes you have to pay for that parking, unfortunately, but not always. The farmer's market I go to goes from 3 to 7, so it's on for 4 hours. In Pittsburgh, from 6 onward, parking is free, so if you do have to go, you could always just go in that final hour if you're in Pittsburgh. Or you could just pay for parking. Parking is not super expensive, but I don't like paying for parking as just a principal thing. But what I do is I walk over, and I have this set route. I start, mine is like north-south facing, like that's how it works. There's like people on both sides, like this walkway in the park, and that's the, you don't have to really worry about like branching off any one way or the other. So what I do is I always just start at the north side, and I just work down. Okay, places on my right, look that way, places on my, and then go back up on, looking at the other side and see what they have. It's very rare that I make a purchase on the first go around, because the first go around I'm mostly looking for what all is here, what do I need, because sometimes there's difference in prices, and let's be honest, if you can buy tomatoes for $5 and someone else is selling them for $8, you want to buy them for $5, but you have to know, okay, who has the tomatoes I need and which tomatoes do I want. This is something I've had an issue with, where sometimes you actually have to hunt around for which tomatoes do you want, and that's okay, that's totally fine, but it takes some work to find it. Over time you get a lot better at knowing, hey, they are going to have the cheaper tomatoes that maybe aren't as pretty, but for me, I don't care if my food looks really beautiful, I just want it to be tasty, and so cheaper is fine. Sometimes I will make a purchase on that first go around, it depends on what I'm looking for. The farmer's market I go to has food vendors. So one of the food vendors who knows me, and I'll come back to that in a moment, how she knows me, I sometimes will, first time I'll go through, I will stop in her stall and I'll go ahead and put my order in and say, I'll be back in 10 minutes. That's about how long it takes her to make me a burger or something. And so that's a really good way to just go ahead and get that going, and then I can have food. Sometimes it doesn't work, but sometimes it does. It just depends on what you want. Now, how I know her is exactly what I do is I go every single week to the same farmer's market. Sometimes I go to another one as well, but usually it's just the one near me because it's just convenient and it's a really well-run one. But just take your time if you're going to a farmer's market and be willing to talk to people about really random stuff. I have a seller here who makes alternative butters, like alternatives like peanut butter. They're made from like pumpkin seeds or sunflower seeds. And the two people who run that stand got to know me, and they were like, how's grad school going? How are things, going with your work? When are finals? When's Thanksgiving break? Stuff like that. And same with the lady who I buy like burgers from. She knows me. She knows what my name is. And she's, okay, what are you having? And she knows, like, I like to go for, like, this kind of, like, hash brown stuff that they have that I really like. And she knows that, but she knows what I like to eat and stuff. So, eventually, over time, you start to build up connections. There's even a lady who makes biscuits. I have frozen biscuits in my freezer still because I haven't made them yet. But she got to know me enough to know, oh yeah, you want more biscuits? Yes, I do, thank you. So, you really do build connections, and especially since farmers markets are really local, you start to notice who's around your neighborhood more. Not in a creepy way, but like there's a lot of people here, like the farmers market I go to is right next to a hospital. Literally across the street from a hospital. So, I'll see a lot of the nurses or doctors coming off of their shift, and they're buying produce to take home with them, which is really nice to see. It's also right next to a school, so there'll often be school-age kids, and thankfully the neighborhood I live in is not super boring. It's kind of diverse, especially compared to Indiana. So there's a lot of different outfits people wear. It's a really good time. You can have really fun conversations with people. I even one time went there with a tote bag I don't usually use, but it was for a Middle Eastern market in my hometown, and some guy literally stopped me and was like, are you from Bloomington? And I was like, yes, I am. And he was like, oh, I went there for undergrad. And I was like, how did you know? And then he pointed at my bag and was like, oh, that's right, yeah. The Sierra Mart bag really does give away. And if you're from Bloomington, Indiana, and you know what Sierra Mart is, I don't know what the new name for it is, it changed names, but you'll know it's like a cultural icon in my hometown. So, of course, it was a big deal. But you'll just have really great conversations with people at farmers markets, but don't go if you're in a rush, because there's other people ahead of you in line, there's other people that may be walking slower than you, there are probably going to be some dogs, so if you like dogs, go to a farmers market. People bring their pets all the time, because they're usually in parks, so it's totally fine. And you'll be surprised what you get. The one I go to usually has the same vendors every week, but sometimes there's a little bit of a change. So mine has like a Bulgarian baker that shows up, or sometimes there'll be someone else who's doing custom drinks, like non-alcoholic cocktails, which I sampled one time. Was not my thing, but I appreciate the ability to try it. And all sorts of different, like, just little things. I even bought a trout fillet one time at a farmer's market. I have not cooked it yet. I need to, but I don't have a use for trout yet. But I was really thrilled that I got trout. So that's just a bit of a little foray into farmers markets. And also, always be careful with what you're buying. Make sure you don't crush anything in the bag, and make sure you can get back to your house, apartment, wherever with it. For me, sometimes I've had a very heavy bag, and it's been like, okay, we're gonna walk as fast as possible because I can't sustain this thing very long. I've seen some people who bring carts with them, like little beach carts that, you can take, like foldable. I've seen people bring those all the time. Older people sometimes come with like wheelchairs with like baskets, or like they'll have a walker with them that they can have a basket with that. It's really up to you, but I do recommend you go the first time and just see what it's like. And keep your expectations open, because you never know what you're going to find. It's always great, and it's always fun to have seasonal food. That brings me to my final point of farmers markets tend to be more expensive, unfortunately. Not always, they can be about the same price. And depending on what you're getting, they may or may not be sustainable. I know what you're thinking, well, why? And the reason is that, unfortunately, as much as I don't like big agriculture, they tend to be fairly efficient. So if you buy lettuce from big agriculture, they're probably growing that lettuce with the least amount of water possible so they can maximize their profits. The mom and pop place that grows lettuce probably doesn't control things as much, and so might have heavier fertilizer or transportation use because they're only moving so much, whereas a bigger company actually uses a lot less carbon to transport because of you moving in such large quantities that it evens out. And they probably have lower water use too. This isn't always the case. There are certainly exceptions. I know that one of the biggest, that produce can be a little bit higher. I know one of the bigger things, actually, if I remember right, is meat locally sourced tends to be a better option sometimes. Not always. It really depends on your local situation. For me, farmers market is not really sustainability. It's more of a community thing. I enjoy the cultural aspect of it. I like being able to socialize and get the food I need without having to go to the grocery store, because going to the store is just a pain. And it's nice to be able to say, hey, I went to the store last week, but I need tomatoes. I know I keep harping on tomatoes, but like for me, tomatoes are a big thing, but they don't last long. So I need them like now or not at all. So, yeah, and just go and have a fun time and see what you get. The best thing I've ever gotten in the farmer's market was the farmer's market I will go to. Someone had grown Romanesco broccoli. If you've never seen that, Google it. It is hilarious what it looks like. But I was thrilled. I was like, Romanesco broccoli? Yes, I'll take a bunch. It was $5, and I got free peppers with it because they were like, would you like some peppers? I was like, sure, why not? So I got some really spicy peppers. They were delicious. So yeah, this has been the episode on farmers markets. I hope this has been somewhat helpful. If you have any questions, just put them in the comments. I would love to answer more questions, but just get out there and try it. It might take you a few times to get down your specific strategy, but I promise there will be a strategy that will come along and you will love it. So until next time, this has been Kinda Sus.